What happens when two bass road warriors spend quality time talking music and life with one of their peers? Bassist, educator, author David C. Gross and bassist and head honcho of KnowYourBassPlayer.com, Tom Semioli, trade dates with the legends of rock, jazz, funk, blues, folk, country, and more. Notes from an Artist, revealing conversations with the legends who've created the soundtrack of our lives. What happens? You're about to find out. It's another episode of Notes from an Artist.
And welcome to our listener to another thrilling episode of Notes from an Artist. I am Tom Semioli, and you, sir, are...
I am David C. Gross, and welcome.
You may be listening to this show on Cygnus Radio, and if you are, then you are tuned into www.cygnusradio.com, or, David, they can be listening to us via podcast. Apple, Amazon, Buzzsprout, Spotify, and coming up soon, some new platforms, and we'll talk all about that. But more importantly, David, let's talk about our guest this evening, the enigmatic Michael Des Barres.
Yes, indeed. What a great artist, actor. Hey, this guy's been around.
He is a veteran. You know, this was a personal favorite for me because not only am I a big fan of his Sirius XM radio show, that's on Little Steven's Underground Garage, I was a fan of Silverhead, the rock and roll band Silverhead in the early 70s, which had Nigel Harrison on bass. You remember him. I was a big fan of Detective, which was signed by Led Zeppelin's then fledgling label Swan Song. And although Detective didn't quite pass the punk muster, some of the members went on to play with Page and Plant's solo band. So that was a great band, and their records have been reissued. I dug Checkered Past, which was Steve Jones, once again Nigel Harrison on bass, Clem Burke and Tony Sales were in that band. That was a fabulous band. Then, of course, Michael Des Barres made rock and roll history at Live Aid when he subbed for Robert Palmer, who had departed Power Station. And he sang a couple of songs with Power Station, and he toured with them. And they were the biggest band in the world at that time. And as you mentioned, he was an actor. He was a child actor in the film To Sir With Love with Sidney Poitier. He also appeared on several 70s, 80s, 90s sitcoms and dramatic shows. He was on MacGyver. He was on Roseanne. He was on Melrose Place. He was on Seinfeld, 21 Jump Street. He was on Frasier. He was everywhere.
He was talk about being a high cheekboned assassin, which I think is actually another great name for a band.
It's a great name for a radio show. 1987, his then wife, Pamela Des Barres, wrote the best-selling book, I'm With the Band, all about the groupie scene in the 60s. And that is a must-read for all rock and roll fans. And we're talking to Michael upon the release of the latest single, Soul Shaker, with Chris Rogers, which is out now on Wicked Cool Records. And, of course, Wicked Cool is Little Steven's Wickedly Cool record label. Another thing I really admire about Michael Des Barres is that he speaks out against ageism in rock and roll. Michael is 75 years young, and he's still going strong. He's making the best music of his life. Check out the new single. Check out some of his recent solo albums with the Michael Des Barres Band. That's a band I'd like to play in, David, because my bass has 4 strings.
Well, you are more than able to do that. However, 1 string, 2 strings, 4 strings, 6 strings, 8 strings, what does it matter? Because, as Mr. Des Barres said, it's your cool vision. It's how you look. It's in the first 5 minutes. He can get whether you've got it or not.
Right. Boy, have we got it.
Or not.
Or not. Let us talk about the playlist you have planned at the conclusion of our interview, David. Surprising.
Well, it's more than one song, Tom.
Okay.
There are a bunch of songs. Of course, we're going to do some Checkered Past, some Detective, some Michael Des Barres solo. And you mentioned a number of folks that I thought were very, very interesting influences. People like Terry Reid, Chris Farlow, Long John Baldry, Brian Auger and Julie Driscoll, Mott the Hoople, Savoy Brown. I think this is going to be a great set list, Tom. And I got to tell you, there are 3 little phrases that Mr. Des Barres says. Be cool, be kind, be courageous. And I think that's a good way to start the show.
Absolutely. Words to live by. Okay, let's bring on Michael Des Barres. There he is. Hello, Michael. Can you tweak your volume a bit, Michael?
Tweak my volume. It's the title of my next album.
That's...
I like that.
Yeah, I'm good with titles.
There you go.
The Marquis.
I am
too, actually. That's very interesting. Yes, my new album is going to be called, if I can remember it,
Dementia.
If you can't join them, beat them.
I think you should call it Dementia.
Dementia. I'll never remember.
If I can remember that. I have to remember the ginkgo.
Don't you find that? I mean, I forget, the stuff. And then suddenly me and Jonesy were talking this morning on the phone. And he says, he goes, hang on. And there was like a 30-second space of time. And then he got back. He said, I've got fucking dementia. And I thought, that's our new band, Steve. We got to have a band called Dementia. We remember nothing, because he is one of the funniest people I've ever known in my life. I love him. Anyway, how are we going to do this?
Jonesy's Jukebox.
Well, hold on. Let's just continue. I think if you call the band Dementia,
yeah,
when you get on stage, you count backwards, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you forget the lyrics and the chords.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good, but
once it would work.
It's a concept, and we all need a good concept.
We all need a good concept. All right, David, let's officially welcome Michael Des Barres to the show. Michael Des Barres, let's talk about Michael Des Barres. He is a Renaissance man. He's in our presence, David. Now, of course, the Renaissance was in the 15th, 16th century, but nevertheless, Michael Des Barres is a Renaissance man. He is a singer. He's a composer. He's a recording artist. He is a performing artist. He is a Sirius XM underground garage radio personality. He's a conniver. He's a survivor. He was on MacGyver. And by that, I mean Michael is a thespian. And David, by thespian, I don't mean women who like each other. I mean actors.
Easy. Come on. This is a family show. I don't know the Manson family, but whatever.
Exactly. He has
a list, that's for sure.
And now you have a royal title. You are the Marquis, as in the Marquis de Sade. We'll get into that. Michael.
I thought that was Marquis de Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Stop interrupting your partner.
Thank
we
you.
do that all the time.
He is the subject of a documentary, fascinating documentary, Who Do You Want Me to Be? That came out in 2021. I enjoyed that. I bought it on Amazon. Now, let me quote from this.
That's nice.
There you go. Let me quote from this documentary, David. The son of a junkie aristocrat and schizophrenic showgirl becomes a master of reinvention on a 50-plus year journey through rock and roll, television, and film. Nice work if you can get it, Michael.
Yeah, 60 years.
60 years. Okay. Of course, Michael, even more from the book Confessions of a Groupie by Pamela Des Barres. That book came out, 1987? Do they still have groupies, Michael? Do they exist?
They might. I mean, I don't. I've been married for 15 years to the wonderful Britta who you just met. Do they have groupies? Yeah, I suppose so. But I think the culture is so different. I would say on a rock and roll level, no. Okay. No. I think maybe Harry Styles does. But the groupie world, the 60s, the 70s, that doesn't exist anymore, you guys. You know that.
I know that. Yeah.
It's a completely different culture. We don't have that. I mean, I was talking to somebody who was interviewing me, a French magazine. They were going, man, Michael, what was like Whiskey Go-Go? What was the Rainbow Club in Hollywood? What was getting blowjobs? Did you have blowjobs in I'm going, fuck off. Come on, man. We got to deal with today. This is, that's yesteryear, and all of that. So to answer your question, no. I think that people are very aware of music today. They know what they like. And I would never, ever negate the music that's being made by people. It's just a new culture and a new way of doing things. In those days, man, there was nobody to kick you out of the dressing room. Security and that didn't exist. It was an absolute free-for-all, orgiastic. It made Nero look like, the Pope. I mean, this was rocking. This was sexy. This was beautiful. 1972, when we came to L.A., and Miss Pamela, I met the queen of the groupies. I'd been married to somebody else for 3 weeks. It's a total disgrace, and I fell in love with her. And then Peter Grant got me a green card, and I married Miss Pamela. These are just some of the things that happened to me.
That's some of the things that happen to anybody. But right, yes, and that's all in the documentary. But let's go backwards, Michael. Let's start with Soul Shake, the new single with Chris Rogers and Dirty Gems. Now, let me quote Michael Des Barres, David, if I may. I'm in love with simplicity. I'm in love with Delaney and Blondie. I'm in love with fantastic female voices. I'm in love with funky rock, playing in a room together, sweaty and smiling. Souls need shaking now more than ever. So what inspired you to do this with Chris Rogers?
Because he's so incredibly talented. I've been in rock bands with great guitar players, all my life. I've sat in living rooms with Jimmy Page and written songs. This guy is an incredible artist that loves R&B, commerciality, great hooks, girls, horns, congas. I've been in 3, instrument bands forever. That would be guitar, bass, and drums, but I'm loving it, powerful rock and roll music. I love it. But then I came across, the whole notion of melody. When I wrote a session with Holly Knight, she's the same thing. She's so clever and so good at great melody. And I just fell in love with this guy. He's just an amazing writer. We've got some songs that are so beautiful,
Bounce Back Baby.
They're sort of semi-serious. We have a song called Revelation Boulevard, which is one of the sweetest songs I ever wrote. And he has encouraged me with melody. And I've learned a lot from him. And he's half my age.
It's interesting that you do a song like this because you listen to the blues in boarding school.
Yeah.
And we've asked a lot of your peers, fellows like Bill Wyman, John Altman, Steve Hackett, Colin Blunstone, not a bad singer, Richard Thompson. What was it about American blues, this black music that was born of slavery, that attracted you, young British fellow?
I think the adolescence of the age, one was 14, 15, 16, and you're just beginning to realize that sex exists. And I think that Muddy Waters was a lot sexier than Cliff Richard, and Lightning Hopkins perhaps had more kind of sexuality to him than Michael Caine. It was a different world because there I was stuck in this boarding school, as you said. And I never came home, in the holidays because I didn't have a mum and dad. The dad was in jail and my mum was in, schizophrenic in an asylum. And I was stuck in these places. So what am I going to do? I got into the blues and I got into reading, Socrates and Dickens and just great writers. And I put the two together and I thought, well, literary Leadbelly, Shakespeare and Muddy Waters. And that became really interesting because it was an equation of intellectualism and raw power, as Iggy would say. And, it was just an amazing education I had. And I had no regrets about what happened to me as a kid. Absolutely not. And then when, I left at 16 early and went to Corona Drama School. And within a few months, I was into So With Love,
It's interesting that, again, you go back to Silverhead, which I bought the record in 1972, and your voice stood out. But you and artists such as Rod Stewart were doing the blues. You were doing it in a pop rock context. So it's interesting to see how that you guys took the blues and then you made it your own in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, Sir Roderick Stewart is just so brilliant, as we all know, as is Stevie Marriott, and was indeed Terry Reid. And it was those three that really, made me raspy and, that bluesy thing and get up there high, a high tenor, voice. I've been singing as the years go by in more of a lower baritone vibe vocally. But in those days, man, I listened to so many blues records and then wrote, Rolling With My Baby. It's all about decadent sexuality. Now, of course, people would, be taking various pills and sexuality has changed so much. It's sort of hidden now and our world is so dark that you can't get away with that kind of thing, peeling a grape and putting it in a, anyway, no, I can't go on with that.
I'm glad you mentioned Terry Reid. It's someone who doesn't really get that much recognition at this point. But back in the day, I remember he played I think it was the Randall's Island Pop Festival and just totally blew me away.
Yeah, he was so interesting because Jimmy says, when Jimmy was doing Zeppelin and trying to, create Led Zeppelin, he turned to Terry first, as I'm sure both of you are aware.
Right.
And Terry said, no, I don't want to do that. No, there's this blonde geezer coming up north with really blonde hair and he's gorgeous. He's like a fucking Viking is what he is. And, and Jimmy and they sat there and then within 15 minutes, Zeppelin they wrote rock and roll in 15 minutes. Did you know that?
Yes.
Which is Little Richard's, like, the beginning of that Little Richard song. And Terry, so inventive, so brilliant, beautiful melody. So, one was learning from him and Chris Farlow and Long John Baldry and Brian Org and Julie Driscoll. And there were so many great, blues artists, and some hit the heights and some didn't, and I learned from everyone, though, I really did. And I was a little actor in drama school. And so I knew how to access, and recreate. And I'm in, enormous debt to those people. Those people absolutely what made me want to sing.
And for your mother, you had a love of Elvis and Billie Holiday.
Billie Holiday, just kills me to this day. And I'm sure you too, because what you're hearing, like Etta James, what you're hearing is the real thing. It's not a pretense. It's not Mariah Carey. Not to say that I don't like Mariah Carey, but when you hear Billie Holiday and all of those women that junkies, and then doing the clubs, and the whole civil rights issues and all of that, and Sam Cooke getting assassinated. And the birth of rock and roll and R&B has a history. Today, there is no mystery.
Good quote. Well, your theatrical education must have been an invaluable resource as a singer.
It was. It was. And one was creating a character, too. You can't help but do that. Right. Okay, so you're the lead singer. So what does that mean? Well, it means what was happening at the time. But really, I was 20 years old after To Sir With Love. I realized I'd met Sidney, and he was brilliant and such an inspiration. And he said, listen, if you want to act, you gotta go out and you gotta do theater, and you've got to really understand what that is. Not in 5-minute takes in a movie or television. Right. You've got to go and do 2.5 hours of Hamlet or something, And I did do that. I toured Europe with the Young Royal Shakespeare Company, and I did Hamlet, and I did The Merchant, Venice, and all of these incredible plays. And then I thought, well, okay, I've done that. I can remember the lines. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put on a pair of leather pants and some lipstick.
Why not?
It's interesting. The life of the artist is not thought of as the life of an entrepreneur, but you certainly were an entrepreneur your whole artistic career, David.
Well, I think most musicians, actors, etc., are entrepreneurs. First of all, you hear no a lot, and when you hear no, you continue going. Well, that's a very important component of entrepreneurial fervor, as I would say. You're always doing your own work.
Yeah, but the issues, though, are vast, even then in the late 60s, where record companies wanted a particular sound. So you were not entrepreneurial, you were a slave, and you would do whatever you could to get into bed with 3 girls, and which is the title of my autobiography. We're very excited. But, entrepreneurial has that sort of managerial significance. It means nothing to me. I never thought of the word. I thought of black magic when I hung around with Jimmy, and I realized that Aleister Crowley was a fucking moron and greedy and disgusting. You go through these things. You go through all these different chapters in the book of invention, and you're reinventing yourself every couple of minutes. At least I.
Did you ever think that at this point in time you'd still be rocking and rolling?
Well, I didn't think about tomorrow, which is also the title of my following book after the one I discussed earlier.
Which will be tomorrow, then.
The thing is, as I was reading existentialist, poets and stuff, Arthur Rimbaud, all of these people, about being in the moment. I stayed in the moment, and I did things right here, right now. I didn't have a plan, and there was no game to be played, where one would be victorious. I just wanted to have a great time, and I did do that. I have a great time. Did I sell billions of records? Absolutely not. Did I have and still have an extraordinary life, a beautiful life. And I've enjoyed it the whole way. The only difficulties for me was coke and heroin. That was. I did 2 or 3 years of that, and boy, oh boy, you've just become an absolute slave.
Yeah.
And I never really wanted to be a slave. And that's why I got sober, because I thought, well, I'm a slave. I'm somebody's slave, and that somebody is powder. How can you become obsessed with powder, which turns you into, for 5 minutes, you're like Elvis, And then after that, you're like a dead Elvis, you know. I mean, it's so quick, and as you guys know that, you know.
Right. Well, you got sober in 1981, yes? And that was a matter of just self-preservation.
Yes, and the honor of Miss Pamela and my son, and and work and singing and being able to act and do all these things. I was completely incapable of doing that. There's a really interesting thing about this, because when you hit bottom, you can see the opposite of that. When you start to become back into yourself, and then you really want to do something terrific, but not because on an egoic level, but on a passionate physical level. You want to do great work and make people happy, make people dance, and make people think, all those things. I mean, Obsession is completely where I was at. That whole lyric I wrote in 10 minutes. Holly, brilliant writer, encouraging me, amazingly talented. And we came up with that song, and it really became, in a sense, a prayer, a rock and roll prayer for me. And I learned a lot from words that I didn't even know existed. And they came to me in a very special way. And a lot of composers, I'm sure, as you guys have done many, many interviews, that the best songs come up like that.
Yes.
You don't labor over it. A lot of people do, but, the great songs I think that one writes in one's life, you write literally with a co-writer who is essentially a spiritual spirit that will give you the...
Without a doubt. Yes.
Listening to your show on Sirius XM, I enjoy it so much because you are such a big fan of rock and roll and blues and funk and jazz and every genre. I think one of the things I really enjoy about your show is how you are outspoken on ageism in rock and roll. Now, let's look at the book, shall we? Bob Dylan in the last 30 years has made some of his best records. Ian Hunter, Defiance Part 1, best record. Rolling Stones just put out a great record, Hackney Diamonds. Sir Paul and Ringo just did a very cool AI with John and George. Colin Blunstone and Rod Argent just put out their best record. And your pal Little Steven and his boss is still pretty vital. So I guess the more you do something and the longer you do it, the better you get at it.
I believe that is true. And I also believe that it's historic to a lot of people. To youngins, they want to find their own icons, their own idols, But our radio program deals with specifically the past more than but the past becomes the present for a lot of people because it inspires. If you're 65 years old and you adored, Colin Blunstone, like any person should, because he's one of the greatest, most innovative and singular vocalist I can think of, other than Terry. I mean, Blunstone, amazing. So we play them, and then what's really interesting is in all the mail and the social media responses that one gets to one's radio programs, a lot of youngins there. A lot of people go, whoa, what the hoop? Or wow, that's pretty cool. And it's delightful for me because, I opened for Mott the Hoople. So, what I mean? So I can talk to them with the same spirit of invention and, really realizing that these bands were unbelievable, like Savoy Brown. Now, who on earth was going to play Savoy Brown except me, and people, and I get more mail from people that dig all of that than, Harry Styles. And God bless Harry Styles. I've got nothing against him.
Nothing against Harry.
That's not my vibe, but the vibe is these young'uns really dig it. It's not just middle-aged housewives.
Of which we are. But I don't hear the show as an oldies show at all. I mean, it's amazing how fresh all this music sounds. It's like records really never get old, do they?
Well, it's like saying Beethoven is old-fashioned. That Mozart guy just doesn't work today, man. It's a fucking absurdity. Mick and Keith are Mozart.
Indeed, they are. Now, we're talking about the way things were to some degree. Now, you were in several influential bands. You were in Silverhead. You were in Detective. Got my Detective swag. Oh.
Very nice. Oh,
there you go.
Sweet of you to put that on.
It's the only shirt I own. Checkered Past, Power Station, of course. You came in and saved the day for those guys. You've had a great solo career. Do you think the album format now is still relevant in the 21st century because of these things?
Really. Not really. I think, it's so interesting. The last album that really is the Stones album. I mean, that I've listened to as an album. I'm a song guy. I love song, but the album world is sort of different now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to keep up with 3 minutes every few weeks. You want to stay up there. And what we do is we introduce that music to young'uns, and we reintroduce it to, shall we say, older people. But albums, I don't think in terms of albums. Think of it like me and Chris that we're writing songs that we love. And Stevie is about it. I mean, Stephen Van Zandt, so we send the song to Stevie and he goes, that's okay. I like that. The chorus, I don't know, do a second chorus on that. Don't fuck around with the fucking solo. Let's get an 8-bar solo and fuck around. That's my impression of it.
Facciamo le mani. Salute. Hey, so. What? I've been going a long time. Let me hear it.
Just when they thought I was out, they pull me back in. All right, Kay. Just this one time, I'll let you ask me about my affairs. Is it true, Michael? No. You fucking skiffoozer. Our true enemy has yet to reveal himself.
He's on a roll. Oh, God. We're gonna get the fuck out of here.
Thank you very much. He's in London now. I love it with all my heart. I love the guy. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a no-nonsense guy. You know that.
Yes.
He's working.
Right. And I think the concept for the radio station is brilliant. It's a great idea. We need something like that.
We do. His book is so good. Do I have it here? I think I do. It's called Unrequited Infatuation.
Yes.
He's a real writer. He's writing a bunch of screenplays right now, but he's a really articulate man and also a wonderful performer. I mean, here's a guy with a bandana and, gypsy vibe. He created this. And you've got to admire a guy that does that and works for kids. Teachrock.org, for instance, is one of the most important things to him. And this is getting kids where you go in, you talk about Sam Cooke, or you're talking about Etta James. Without Etta James, there's no Beyonce. So you take that and you build something so youngins can understand, from whence it comes.
Well, David, you know all about that. David has a program called Empower Through Music.
Wow.
Yeah, I bring music programs into the New York City schools. I have
great.
I have a group of teachers who are professional musicians who actually do residencies. So a lot of music teachers were afraid to be a musician, and they had this parental thing in the back of their head going, you got to get a job, you got to do this, do it as a hobby. My attitude is you bring actual musicians into the school. They can talk about, some of our guys, some of the horn players were with the Allman Brothers when they would play the Beacon. So the kids could learn things like, what's it like at a sound check? What's it like backstage? What's it like at rehearsal? How do you do this? How do you get up on, the real stuff? And I think it's very important.
I do too. That's wonderful. You do that. Congratulations. That's terrific.
See that, David? You do make contributions to society every now and then.
Every now and then, yes. It's true.
That's totally fantastic. It's great. It's exactly what we do. So.
Right, and it helps kids with math skills and language skills. It really goes way memory. It goes way beyond the bandstand. So.
Well, music, it is a vibe. I mean, it's love, it's hate, it's revenge, it's beautiful, it's dancing, it's physical, it's sexual, it's life. Music is life. Rhythm. The whole thing is rhythmic. And if they can understand that on what you're talking about, which is, sound checks and stuff, it makes it easier for them to maybe become musicians.
Exactly. And they become more discerning listeners in what they like, which I think is important as well.
All of the letters, I call them letters, can you imagine? All of the things that I get from these kids, I tears. Totally, because it's so moving to see what it's like to be a DJ. I mean, here's the vibe for me on that very quickly is, of course I'm a narcissist. What the fuck do you think I am? I mean, do I have the pretense of that? I mean, oh no, I really just like to serve the music. I mean, the truth of the matter is, of course I'm a narcissist because I wanted to get somewhere with it. So I open myself to people and they go, oh my God, he's actually saying he's a narcissist. Well, he's not, is he, anymore? Because he said he is, which is really sort of youngy. You've got to be Freud to understand this concept,
Or young.
would say, jolly good, Michael, that's brilliant. Brilliant sort of rock stardom. You've got it. That's exciting. But, so I take, listen, I'm playing other people's music. I'm not selling my own.
Exactly. How do you go about putting together your playlist?
Oh my God! Well, Stevie's got 5,000 songs. He's been doing it 22 years. I've been there 10. And what it is to me, if you listen to Aretha, it's a mantra. It's no longer a song. It's a spiritual 3 minutes. And you can listen to it for weeks, one song, because they are now not, like we live in a world bang, 2-3 minute Harry Styles, boom, in, out, stars last two months, gone, fast thing. No, it's like if you study meditation, then you both know that that's a repetitive rhythmic thing, and through that, through the repetition and the rhythm of rock and soul music, you become one with the music. So it's not just entertainment anymore. It's a lesson in love and life. So all the great lyricists, Bernie Taupin, written about life itself, that's educative. And that's what Stevie's about. Entertainment, first and foremost, and a groove, a great rhythm. But the great songs have a great message.
Yes, they do. And I really appreciate the fact that you name the artist, you name the album, you name the producer, you name the songwriter. And if there's any significant guests or soloists, you detail them.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's really important, because, those people that are working in that vibe, they create an atmosphere. You're in a studio, hopefully, and then not in your own little studio, which I do to a great extent, simply because of the pandemic, blah, 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 Michael Des Barres. But the real thing about this shit is being together and listening to one another, learning from one another, and creating together. That's the most important thing. And for me, to be able to play other people's music is so instructive and educative for me. I've learned so much by being a DJ.
Mm-hmm. Now, talk about learning. Now, you're obviously on the film set with great actors. You're on the TV with great actors. How does that translate to you as a band leader? Because that's a big responsibility being a band leader.
After the passage, which was such an extraordinary thing. I mean, Robert Palmer I knew 10 years before John and Andy Taylor. And, I'm there with Don Johnson in Miami. We're having a fun time, blah, blah, blah. And I get a phone call and I, come to New York. There's a band that needs a singer. I said, what band? They said, just jump in the white limo that's outside your house right now and come to New York, which I did. And I go up to the, 14th floor, and there's John Taylor and Tony Thompson, God rest his soul, sitting there sweating because in 6 days, they're starting a multi-million-dollar tour. And I'm telling you this story because it's a hell of a story, and I joined this band, and 3 days later, I'm at Live Aid. I mean,
it's a great thing, though.
Oh, I'll say. And absolutely not nervous. I mean, Madonna was shaking so hard that her bracelets you could hear from 20 foot, and like, oh, wow. I mean, everybody was going, oh, Jesus, this is 2 billion people. What do you mean 2 billion people? And I'm going, 2 billion people. Great. Going out there and singing something like, whatever it was, Get It On. Mark was one of my dearest friends.
Sure.
Me and Mark Bolden would go on auditions for modeling when he had short hair when he was a little mod, and I was like that. And we'd go to these places and we'd, and do commercials, television commercials, or we'd do magazines for, young kids' clothes. This is way before Tyrannosaurus Rex. This is way before Ziggy, And the thing is, the Live Aid thing was an incredible experience. One of the greatest experiences of my life, that tour, because I was dealing with Duran fans and also Robert Palmer fans.
Yeah, how was it? That's a tough dichotomy there, yeah.
Well, dig it. I mean, in the first one, like, there was, 40, 60,000 screaming teenage girls, which is not a bad thing.
Never.
And there you are on the stage. But they parted like the Red Sea. One side Andy, one side John, and me in the middle. Who the fuck is that? Who's the guy? Who's that skinny guy? And, but after a couple of shows, after Live Aid, then they all went, oh, him. And then I became okay, I mean, I would never in a million years say that I was any as good as or as talented as Robert Palmer, because I'm not Robert Palmer. I'm a rock singer. He's a soul singer. It's a different vibe. And he's, the other thing is his stage act was this. I'll do an impression.
In with a tie on.
Yeah. In a suit. I'm hanging from the rafters, and getting them going. And I think Andy, who is a rock and roll guitar player,
right.
He ain't no R&B guitar player, and he's a brilliant, he can play anything. But he and I got along well, and it was a rock band. After 2 or 3 shows, it was a rock band. And we did Obsession, like in rock and roll. We did, all great rock songs, as well as the one album they had.
David and I are bass players, but don't hold that against us. I know I love Paul Ill in your band. I loved Nigel Benjamin, great player in your band. When you go to put together a band as a band leader, what do you look for in the players?
Wardrobe.
Yes.
What they're wearing, within 5 minutes, I can suss,
Yeah.
I mean, you could, you too.
Yeah.
It's just, you got it or not, Is it rhythmic? Is it interesting? Are you involved in it? Is it a job?
Yeah.
Do you live for it? If you live for it, I'll work with you. You know what I mean? It's not
Well, good, because when we do the next Teen Cancer benefit, we'll call you up. Steve Conti will do it. Yeah, Steve did the last one. It was great.
Yeah, more than happy.
We put together, our Notes from an Artist. We did a couple of charity shows at the Cutting Room, which you're familiar with, the City Winery. Yeah, Steve Conti was there. Arno Hecht. I don't know if you ever worked with Arno, the horn player. We had some of Ian Hunter's band there with us. We had...
Well, Ricky Bird and all those cats, they're Willie Nile, all those City Winery guys, they're terrific people, and we play them. Stevie loves them, and we play Steve Conti. He's a terrific guitar player. He's doing a solo vibe, and he's a very, you can, rely on somebody like that.
Precisely,
we've known him a long time. We had Mark Bosch on.
I've played with him.
Yeah, everybody.
I did a gig with him, actually. A terrific guitar player and a true rock and roller.
Yes,
absolutely.
Ricky Bird, those cats.
We've had Ricky. And who else? Tommy Mandel. Yeah, so we'd love to have you on board. Now, you say the key to survival is what? Keep moving, drink water, be kind, be courageous, and you'll live forever.
That's right. And be cool.
And be cool.
Yeah, I always say at the end of the thing, be cool, be kind, and be courageous. Especially now where there's such hatred and such difficulties and the clouds are dark and we are in just an absolute pit of depression. It's like Edgar Allan Poe is president. I mean, it's just a dreadful situation that we have here. And if love ever was needed, it is right now. And by love, I mean kindness and coolness and courage. To be that, to be the best you, the kindest you, the coolest you. And I say that every fucking day. And they know that. They know that's where I'm coming from. And I think that's where I've gotten this vast 5 million audience. There's 5 million people listen to this show. That is a lot of people. And you got to be careful what you say. I don't mean be careful in terms of, only in terms of truth and honesty. If you're honest with people, they'll be honest back and they'll come back again to hear honest, descriptions of songs and why they did this and why Jimmy died at 27 and so on. The Club 27, the dreadful Club 27, I want Club 155,
We're getting there.
I am. I mean, my goodness, I'm 3 years away from it.
Well, yes. I think if you add up all our ages, how did you come to be a DJ? Why did Steven select you?
Because what happened was I was fascinated by interviewing people, and I was online, and I wanted to interview people, so I called people up, Melody Griffith and Weird Al, and some amazing Gene Simmons who I'd known for years, And I interviewed them, and one day, just for a couple of weeks, I was doing it, right? So Maureen, Stevie's incredible wife, Maureen Van Zandt. So here's me talking to Priscilla Presley, and Andrew Luger Oldham, who I adore and respect with, I forget.
Great show. He has a great show, yeah.
He was the morning guy. And Maureen heard me do this, and Andrew and Stevie had a falling out vibe. And Maureen whispered in Stevie's ear, get Michael for a couple of weeks and see what he does. And what was I doing? I was doing some stupid fucking show playing a killer, some high cheekboned assassin. I don't know. But anyway, so I get a phone call. Yeah, look at you. I get a phone call from Stevie. He goes, hey, Michael, because me and Jonesy in Checker Pass, we opened for him.
Yes.
In the early 80s, and we knew him and we were going, wow, that band was so great.
I love that band. I love Checker Pass.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's great. But, so therefore, and then Maureen says, well, go call him. And he calls me and he goes, do you want to ever go? And he said, I'll give you a couple of weeks and we'll see what happens. And I said, what you pay me? He said, nothing. And I said, okay. Because I was doing, I was killing people on telly. It was a very successful vibe for me at that time. And still is, but I don't do it anymore because I can't stand sitting in a coach for 10 hours and coming out going,
oh, but you do it so well. It's that Roger Moore Saint kind of thing.
No, I could never do that because I'm wasting time and I'm very, very hip to time and I didn't want to sit. You know what it's like? I mean, sitting in that chair and they're putting the thing on and I've got a scar probably and I'm missing a tooth. I mean, and I was really good with the guns, and all kind of weapons, but I couldn't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. It's horrible. TV, horrible, awful, stupid, pathetic, but 90% of the time. Anyway, so I do it and I got it.
Right? 5 years of work, 20 years of waiting around. Michael, before we let you go, we always put together a playlist for the artist. What songs from your storied career would you like us to play for our audience?
With My Baby from Silverhead, Rolling with My Baby. That's a cool song. Checkered Past, A World Gone Wild, Power Station, Get It On. You can get Live Me on the Power Station. Detective, I would say One More Heartache. What else have I done? I'm Only Human. That's good. What else have I done?
Well, we're going to do the new single, of course.
Oh, yeah. The stuff with Chris is just phenomenal, which is, Bounce Back Baby, which is so good. I wrote with Chris.
That's a great
one. The other one was Delaney and Bonnie did it, so. Yeah. But we are now writing this album called Revelation Boulevard. And he's amazing. And the songs I've done for Stevie are pretty good. I did a great version of Stop in the Name of Love because I really love those Motown songs, They're so great. And if you rock them up, and you get a big, you get that, and you're singing the Supremes. It's an interesting combination.
It is that so back.
In the Name of Love you can put in your vibe. And, what else? I don't know, man.
Tell me a song that brings a tear to your eye.
Ziggy played guitar, I guess.
Okay.
Ziggy played guitar. Bowie.
Okay.
And
Billie Holiday.
Oh, the hanging one. What is the title?
Strange Fruit.
Yeah, forget about it.
And what about that guy over your shoulder, looking over your shoulder, the King? What would you like to hear from him?
Jailhouse Rock was the first record I ever bought, 78 RPM. So,
oh, wow.
Jailhouse Rock. I always say Jailhouse Rock for Elvis, I mean, because Elvis is the king. For me anyway.
Basically,
other people, but for me, it's him.
Okay.
I mean, incredible singer. He could have been an opera singer. I mean, he's just had an extraordinary voice. But it's more than that, isn't it? Elvis was just sexy, and Rudolph Valentino, 3 chords, America. Yeah. He means so much. It's so symbolic.
Yeah,
I was 3 years old, and I'll tell you, I knew it back then. I did.
Yeah.
I always knew what I was going to do. As a matter of fact, great story. You'll like this. I was playing clarinet, 3rd grade. My sister took me to see A Hard Day's Night. I don't know where it came from, but I knew I would never get laid playing clarinet. And so I ended up with drums and bass.
Rhythm. Absolutely. I understand completely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Good for you.
Well, maybe you can pick up a clarinet player, Dave. Well, Michael, thank you for being a guest.
Oh, it's a wonderful conversation. I could speak to you guys all night. It's terrific. I've really enjoyed it so much, and I do this a lot. And it's lovely to find out that you know what time it is. Because that time is tick-tocking out. That whole notion of that music that you love, that we continue to play, is so important. It's Beethoven. The Stones are Billie Holiday.
Excellent work, Michael. You're a good man, Michael Des Barres.
Bless you.
Bless you. All right, we'll
Nice
let
to
you know
meet
when this airs, and we'll send you links and all that other stuff. I'll listen to you on Underground Garage, and we hope to have you on stage soon.
Absolutely. You just let me know, and me and Stevie will show up.
All right, so just keep moving, drink water, be kind, David, be courageous, and you will live forever. And be cool. Yes, the last one. Sorry.
That's right.
Be cool.
Forever. Oh, my God.
Wicked cool, as a matter of fact.
Wicked, yes, there you go. Look at you getting the plugs in. All right, Stephen.
Guys. Thank
Hope you
so
appreciate that. All right, be well. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Michael, that was a great show. Thank you so much for being on our show. Learned a lot.
And you're listening to this, David, on www.cygnusradio.com, or you could be listening to this on our podcast, which is available on Apple, Amazon, Buzzsprout, Spotify, and wherever podcasts are potted. Okay, here comes the Michael Des Barres playlist.